Everyone quits 3 feet from gold. You're closer to winning than you think. What if outlasting is more powerful than outworking? The competition stops when their motivation runs out. Your secret weapon? Still being there tomorrow. Most battles are won by whoever refuses to leave. What would happen if you couldn't quit? Here's what nobody tells you. 97% of people collapse right before breakthrough. They stop when victory is within reach. What separates the last person standing from everyone else? Your dreams die the moment you stop showing up. Welcome to Unbeatable. This is about mastering the outlast, outwin strategy. The strategy nobody talks about because it's too simple, too unglamorous, too slow for the instant gratification crowd. But here's the truth that will change everything for you. The person who wins isn't always the smartest, the fastest, or the most talented. The person who wins is the one who's still standing when everyone else has walked away. Think about the last time you were in a long line at the DMV or waiting for customer service. Remember how people started dropping out? First one person left, then another, then 3 more. The line got shorter not because it moved faster, but because people gave up. That's how life works. That's how success works. That's how you win. The outlast advantage is real. It's measurable. It's the closest thing to a guarantee you'll ever find in an unpredictable world. While others are searching for shortcuts, you're building stamina. While others are burning bright and fast, you're learning to burn steady and long. While others are quitting when things get hard, you're just getting started. This audiobook will teach you something radical. Endurance beats talent, speed, and luck combined. You don't need to be the best. You need to be the last. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be persistent. You don't need to sprint. You need to pace yourself for the marathon that everyone else thinks is a race. Here's what we're going to cover together. We're diving deep into the quitting threshold, that exact moment where most people break. You'll learn to identify it in yourself and push past it every single time. We're building stamina over speed, creating daily micro-habits that compound into unstoppable momentum. We're developing the war of attrition mindset, where every setback means your competition is thinning out around you. You'll master emotional armor, staying calm when others panic. You'll learn energy management, the outlaster's fuel system that prevents burnout while maintaining peak performance. You'll gain clarity on when to pivot your strategy and when to persist. You'll become immune to social proof, ignoring the crowd's exit. You'll witness the compound effect of showing up, how small daily actions create exponential results over time. We'll relapse-proof your commitment with psychological tripwires that catch you before you quit. You'll learn to win by default, positioning yourself to claim victory simply by remaining in the game longest. And finally, you'll step into the victory lap, the life that waits for you after you've outlasted everyone. But before we go deeper, let me tell you why this matters right now, today, in your life. The outlast advantage is not just a concept. It's a fundamental law of competition that governs everything from business to relationships to personal goals. The advantage comes from understanding one simple truth. Most people quit. Not eventually, not after years. They quit fast. They quit early. They quit right before the finish line. Studies show that 92% of New Year's resolutions fail by February. 92%. That means if you can just make it to March while pursuing a goal, you're already in the top 8%. You didn't have to be brilliant. You didn't have to be lucky. You just had to not quit when everyone else did. Let me take you inside a real moment that happened 3 years ago in Seattle. There was a young woman named Maya who wanted to build a freelance writing business. She started with enthusiasm, just like 47 other writers in her networking group. They all launched their websites in the same month. They all posted on social media about their new ventures. They all had the same 24 hours in a day. By month 3, 32 of those writers had stopped posting. They'd gotten discouraged by the lack of immediate clients. By month 6, only 9 writers were still actively marketing themselves. By month 12, Maya was one of 3 still standing. She wasn't the best writer in the original group. She wasn't the most experienced. She wasn't the most connected. But she was still showing up. Here's what happened in month 13. A major tech company was searching for a consistent writer for their blog. They'd worked with 5 different freelancers who'd all flaked out or moved on to other things. When they found Maya's website and saw she'd been posting consistently every single week for over a year, they didn't even interview other candidates. They hired her on the spot. That contract became $60,000 a year in recurring revenue. Maya won by outlasting. Now here's the critical insight. Maya didn't outwork the other 46 writers. She didn't out-talent them. She outlasted them. While they were quitting, she was quietly stacking days. While they were looking for faster paths, she was walking the long path. While they were convinced it wasn't working, she was trusting the process. This is the advantage you're going to build. Endurance beats everything else because endurance is the only thing most people don't have. They have talent. They have ideas. They have motivation on day 1. But they don't have day 365. They don't have the stamina to keep going when results are invisible. Think about the trees in your neighborhood. The ones that have been there for 50 years didn't grow faster than the trees that died. They didn't have better soil or more sunlight than the saplings that withered. They simply survived more seasons. They outlasted droughts, storms, and harsh winters. They're tall now not because they grew quickly, but because they never stopped growing. You are going to become like those trees, deeply rooted, weathering every season, still reaching upward when everything around you has fallen. Let's talk about why endurance beats talent. Talent is a spark. Endurance is the fuel. A spark without fuel dies in seconds. Fuel without a spark can wait patiently until the spark arrives. Which would you rather have? The gifted person who quits in 6 months or the average person who shows up for 6 years? History is filled with talented failures, people who could have been great but weren't willing to be patient, people who had the spark but not the fuel. Meanwhile, history's greatest success stories are often people who were told they weren't good enough, they weren't smart enough, they weren't talented enough, but they were stubborn enough, they were patient enough, they were still there when everyone else left. Consider the story of James Dyson, who created 5,126 failed prototypes of his vacuum cleaner before one finally worked. 5,126 failures. Most people quit after 5. After 10, if they're really determined. But Dyson outlasted his own discouragement 5,000 times. His company is now worth billions. Not because he was the most talented engineer, because he was the most persistent. Or think about Colonel Sanders, who was rejected 1,009 times before someone agreed to franchise his chicken recipe. 1,009 rejections. He was 65 years old. He could have retired. He could have given up. He could have accepted that his idea wasn't good enough. Instead, He went to restaurant number 1010. Kentucky Fried Chicken is now in over 150 countries. He outlasted 1,000 no's to get to yes. These aren't inspirational fairy tales. They're case studies in the Outlast advantage. Dyson and Sanders won because they simply refused to leave the game. They understood something that most people never learn. The competition eliminates itself. You don't have to beat everyone. You just have to wait for everyone to beat themselves. Why does endurance beat speed? Because speed without direction is just motion. Because sprinting leads to burnout. Because the person who runs the fastest mile often can't finish the marathon. The business world is littered with startups that grew too fast, hired too fast, expanded too fast, and collapsed under their own velocity. Meanwhile, companies that grew slowly and steadily are still standing decades later. Think about the tortoise and the hare. You've heard that story since childhood, but have you really understood it? The hare was objectively faster. The hare had more talent. The hare should have won. But the hare's strategy depended on a burst of energy, followed by rest, followed by panic, followed by more bursts. The tortoise's strategy was simple. Keep moving. Never stop. One step at a time. The tortoise won because the race was long enough for consistency to compound. Your life is the long race. Your goals are marathons, not sprints. Your success will not be determined by how fast you start. It will be determined by whether you're still moving on day 730, on day 1,000, on day 3,000. Endurance beats luck because luck is random and temporary. You might get lucky once. You might get lucky twice. But you can't build a life on lucky breaks. You can build a life on showing up every single day. Luck favors the person who's still in position to receive it. If you quit, you're not around when the lucky break arrives. If you outlast, you're there for every opportunity that emerges. There's a concept in probability called the law of large numbers. The more times you try something, the closer your results get to the expected outcome. In simple terms, if you keep showing up, eventually the math works in your favor. If you quit early, you never get to the point where probability starts helping you. The outlaster understands this. Every day you show up is another lottery ticket. The person with the most tickets wins. Now let me tell you what endurance really looks like, because it's not what you think. Endurance isn't gritting your teeth and suffering. Endurance isn't about willpower and force. Endurance is about systems, habits, and sustainable pace. It's about building a daily practice that you can maintain for years, not weeks. It's about finding the rhythm that lets you keep going when everyone else burns out. Imagine you're building a fire. You can throw all your wood on at once and create a massive blaze that burns bright for 20 minutes and then dies. Or you can carefully add one log at a time, maintaining a steady flame that burns all night. Which fire is more useful? Which fire is still going when you need it at 3 in the morning? That's the difference between intensity and endurance. Most people live with intensity. They throw everything at their goals for a month and then collapse. They work 80-hour weeks until they burn out. They diet aggressively for 6 weeks and then binge for 6 months. They post on social media every day for 3 weeks and then disappear for 3 months. Intensity is impressive. Intensity gets attention. But intensity doesn't last. Endurance is boring. Endurance is showing up on Tuesday when nobody's watching. Endurance is doing the work when you don't feel like it. Endurance is choosing the sustainable path over the impressive path. Endurance is the decision to be a little better every day instead of perfect for one day. Here's the advantage that changes everything. When you commit to endurance, you're playing a different game than everyone else. They're playing the sprint. You're playing the ultra marathon. They're trying to be impressive today. You're trying to be consistent for 1,000 days. They're looking for the shortcut. You've accepted there is no shortcut, only the long cut that actually works. This means you stop competing with them directly. You stop trying to be flashier, faster, or more talented. You simply commit to being there longer. And here's what happens. In month 1, they look like they're winning. They have more energy, more results, more momentum. In month 6, you're neck and neck. They're starting to slow down. You're still at your sustainable pace. In month 12, they're gone. You're still there. You've won by default. This is the war of attrition. Attrition means the gradual reduction of a force through sustained pressure. In war, attrition is about outlasting the enemy's resources. In life, it's about outlasting everyone else's motivation. You're not trying to destroy the competition. You're waiting for the competition to destroy itself. And it will. Competition always does. The question you need to ask yourself right now is this. Are you currently playing the sprint or the marathon? Are you trying to get rich quick or wealthy slowly? Are you trying to transform overnight or improve incrementally? Are you burning bright or burning steady? Your honest answer to this question will determine everything that happens next in your life. If you're playing the sprint, you're going to lose to someone playing the marathon. If you're burning bright, you're going to burn out before someone burning steady. If you're trying to transform overnight, you're going to quit before someone improving incrementally reaches the finish line. The math is simple. The person who lasts longest wins. So the only question that matters is, how do you become the person who lasts? That's what the rest of this audiobook is about. We're going to build your Outlast advantage step by step. We're going to identify where you're vulnerable to quitting and armor those weak points. We're going to create systems that let you maintain effort when everyone else is losing steam. We're going to rewire your brain to see endurance as your superpower instead of talent, speed, or luck. But first, you need to understand the moment where everything falls apart for most people. You need to understand the quitting threshold. The quitting threshold is the invisible line where everyone breaks. It's not the same for everyone. For some people, it's day 3. For others, it's week 6. For some, it's month 4. But everyone has it. That moment when continuing feels harder than quitting, when the gap between effort and results feels unbearable, when the voice in your head says, "This isn't working. You should stop." Here's what makes the quitting threshold so dangerous. It feels rational. When you hit it, your brain generates perfectly logical reasons to quit. This isn't the right path. You're wasting time. Other people are succeeding faster with different strategies. You're not built for this. These thoughts feel like wisdom. They feel like clarity. But they're not. They're just your brain trying to escape discomfort. The quitting threshold exists because of how human motivation works. When you start something new, you have what psychologists call intrinsic motivation. You're excited, you're energized. The newness itself is rewarding. But intrinsic motivation has a half-life. It decays over time. By week 3, the newness has worn off. By week 6, you're facing the reality of the work without the chemical high of starting. This is where most people quit. Not because the path is wrong, not because they can't succeed, but because they've hit the point where motivation has faded and discipline hasn't yet become habit. They're in the gap. The terrible, necessary gap between starting and momentum. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. It's January 7th. A man named David decided on January 1st that this year he's finally going to get in shape. He joined a gym. He bought new workout clothes. He downloaded a fitness app. He told his friends and family. He was committed. On January 2nd, he went to the gym. It felt great. He was sore afterward, but it was the good kind of sore. The "I'm finally doing this" kind of sore. On January 3rd, he went again, still feeling motivated, still feeling strong. On January 4th, he was really sore. He decided to take a rest day. Smart decision, he told himself. Don't overdo it. On January 5th, he was supposed to go back, but he'd had a long day at work. He was tired. He'd go tomorrow instead. On January 6th, tomorrow arrived. He went to the gym, but it was crowded. Everyone else had the same New Year's resolution. He did a half-hearted workout and left early. On January 7th, he woke up and thought, maybe I'm not a gym person. Maybe I should try something else. Maybe this isn't the right approach for me. David quit on day 7, not because the gym didn't work, not because getting in shape was impossible. He quit because he hit his quitting threshold. His intrinsic motivation had decayed. He hadn't yet built the discipline to continue without motivation. He was in the gap, and the gap swallowed him. Now here's the crucial part. If David had made it to day 30, he would have likely made it to day 90. If he'd made it to day 90, he would have likely made it to day 180. The quitting threshold isn't evenly distributed throughout a journey. It's concentrated in the early stages. Most people quit in the first 10% of the journey. If you can survive the first 10%, you're exponentially more likely to finish. This is why understanding your personal quitting threshold is the first step to mastering the Outlast advantage. You need to know when you're most vulnerable. You need to recognize the thoughts and feelings that precede quitting. You need to expect the threshold and prepare for it. Your quitting threshold has patterns. Think about the last 5 things you quit. A diet, a side business, a creative project, a learning goal, a relationship. When did you quit each one? What were you thinking? What were you feeling? Were you 3 days in? 3 weeks? 3 months? There's a pattern there. Your brain has a default quitting point, and that default point is destroying your potential. For most people, the quitting threshold appears between day 10 and day 45 of a new commitment. It's the point where the initial excitement has completely faded, but the results haven't yet appeared. This is the valley of disappointment. You're putting in effort, but not seeing output. You're climbing, but can't see the peak yet. You're investing, but haven't gotten returns. This valley is where dreams go to die. But here's the secret that will change everything. The valley of disappointment is an illusion. You are making progress. Results are accumulating. You just can't see them yet. Imagine you're filling a bucket with water 1 drop at a time. For the first 1,000 drops, the bucket looks empty. You can't see the water at the bottom. But every drop matters. Every drop is bringing you closer to the moment when the water becomes visible. If you quit at drop 999, you lose all 999 drops of effort. If you continue to drop 1,000, you see the water. If you continue to drop 10,000, the bucket overflows. Your efforts are the drops. The visible results are the overflowing bucket. The quitting threshold is the moment you stop at drop 999 because you can't see the water yet. So, how do you push past the quitting threshold? How do you survive the valley of disappointment? You need 3 specific tools: expectation management, micro wins, and social accountability. Expectation management means you prepare for the valley before you enter it. You tell yourself on day 1 that day 20 will be hard, that day 30 will feel pointless, that day 40 will make you want to quit. You expect it. You normalize it. You remind yourself that the valley means you're right on track, not off track. When you expect the valley, it loses its power to surprise you. When you're surprised by difficulty, you interpret it as a sign you're on the wrong path. When you expect difficulty, you interpret it as a sign you're exactly where you should be. Micro wins means you create small, visible victories during the valley. If you're building a business and haven't made money yet, celebrate finishing your website. Celebrate sending 10 sales emails. Celebrate getting 1 positive response. If you're working out and haven't lost weight yet, celebrate showing up 5 days in a row. Celebrate lifting heavier than last week. Celebrate feeling stronger. Micro wins keep your motivation alive in the gap between starting and momentum. Social accountability means you tell someone about your commitment and give them permission to check on you. Not to judge you, not to pressure you, just to witness your consistency. When you know someone is watching, you're less likely to quit quietly. The act of reporting your progress creates a psychological commitment that makes quitting harder. You're not just breaking a promise to yourself. You're breaking a promise to someone else. Let me take you inside another real moment. This one happened to a man named Kevin who wanted to write a book. He'd been talking about writing a book for 5 years. He had the idea. He had the outline. He had the first chapter in his head, but he'd never actually written more than 3 pages before quitting. This time, Kevin decided to use all 3 tools. First, he managed his expectations. He wrote himself a note that said, "Day 30 will feel hopeless. This is normal. Keep writing." He stuck the note on his computer monitor. Second, he celebrated micro wins. Every day he wrote, even if it was just 200 words, he put a gold star on his calendar. The visual progress was motivating. Third, he told his friend Marcus that he was writing every day and asked Marcus to text him every Friday to ask how many words he'd written that week. On day 28, Kevin hit his quitting threshold. He looked at what he'd written and thought it was garbage. He was sure nobody would want to read it. He was embarrassed. He considered deleting the whole file and pretending the project never existed. But then he saw the note on his monitor. "Day 30 will feel hopeless. This is normal. Keep writing." He'd literally predicted this moment. He looked at his calendar and saw 28 gold stars in a row. He didn't want to break the streak. And he knew Marcus was going to text him in 2 days and ask about his word count. He couldn't tell Marcus he'd quit. So Kevin wrote 200 words on day 28, even though it felt pointless. He wrote 200 words on day 29. He wrote 200 words on day 30. And on day 31, something shifted. The words came easier. The doubt was quieter. He'd pushed through the threshold. By day 60, he'd written 30,000 words. By day 180, he'd finished his first draft. The book is now published. Kevin is an author. Not because he was the most talented writer, because he outlasted his own desire to quit. This is what pushing past the quitting threshold looks like. It's not dramatic. It's not a big breakthrough moment. It's quietly choosing to continue when every fiber of your being wants to stop. It's writing the next 200 words. It's going to the gym one more time. It's making one more sales call. It's showing up on the day when showing up feels pointless. Now, here's what happens after you survive the quitting threshold once. It gets easier every time after that. Your brain learns that the valley is survivable. Your brain learns that the discomfort is temporary. Your brain learns that continuing is always an option. You build what psychologists call self-efficacy, the belief that you can do hard things. And once you have that belief, you become nearly unstoppable. Think about this. What would your life look like if you'd never quit anything? What would you have accomplished if you'd pushed through every quitting threshold you've ever faced? What business would you have built? What skill would you have mastered? What body would you have created? What book would you have written? What relationship would you have saved? The person who never quits doesn't exist. Everyone quits sometimes. But the person who quits less than everyone else, that person wins everything. Here's your first exercise. Right now, identify one thing you've quit in the past year. Something you started with excitement and abandoned when it got hard. Write down the exact moment you quit. What day was it? What were you thinking? What were you feeling? That's your quitting threshold. That's the pattern you need to break. Now, identify one thing you're currently committed to. Predict when you're going to hit your quitting threshold. Prepare for it. Manage your expectations. Plan your micro wins. Set up your accountability. When the threshold arrives, you'll be ready. And you'll push through. This brings us to the next critical piece of the Outlast advantage. Building stamina over speed. Creating daily micro-habits that compound into unstoppable momentum. Speed is seductive. Speed looks like success. Speed gets celebrated. But speed is also the enemy of endurance. The person who sprints the first mile of a marathon doesn't win the marathon. They collapse at mile 8. Meanwhile, the person who paces themselves steadily finishes strong. In life, in business, in relationships, in health, stamina beats speed every single time. Stamina is your capacity to sustain effort over time. It's not about peak performance. It's about consistent performance. It's not about what you can do for a day or a week. It's about what you can do for a year, for 5 years, for a decade. Stamina is the difference between a one-hit wonder and a lifelong career, between a crash diet and a sustainable lifestyle, between a sprint and a legacy. Most people build their lives around speed because that's what gets rewarded in the short term. The employee who stays late every night for a month gets the promotion, even though they'll burn out in 6 months. The entrepreneur who launches fast and grows fast gets the headlines, even though 90% of fast growth startups fail within 5 years. The influencer who posts 15 times a day for 3 months gets the followers, even though they'll ghost their audience by month 6. Our culture worships speed, hustle culture, grind culture, rise and grind, sleep when you're dead. These aren't strategies for success. They're strategies for burnout. They're designed by people who've never tried to sustain effort for longer than a year. They're sold by people who got lucky with a short burst and mistake their luck for a system. You're going to reject speed. You're going to embrace stamina, and you're going to win because of it. Stamina is built through micro habits, not massive efforts. A micro habit is a tiny action that takes less than 2 minutes and can be done every single day. It's not impressive, it's not Instagram worthy, but it compounds. And compound effects are the most powerful force in the universe. Consider the math. If you improve by 1% every day for a year, you don't end up 1% better. You end up 37 times better. That's the compound effect. But here's the catch. To get the compound effect, you have to show up every day. You can't skip days. You can't take weeks off. You have to trust that the tiny improvements are accumulating, even when you can't see them yet. This is why micro habits are so powerful. They're small enough that you can sustain them indefinitely. You'll never burn out from a 2-minute habit. You'll never get too busy for a 2-minute habit. You'll never lose motivation for a 2-minute habit. The habit is so easy that your brain doesn't resist it. And because your brain doesn't resist it, you actually do it. And because you do it every day, it compounds. Let me show you what this looks like practically. Let's say you want to become a writer. The speed approach says write 3,000 words a day. Sprint toward your goal. Finish a book in 30 days. The stamina approach says write 200 words a day. Every single day. No exceptions. Which approach do you think leads to more completed books over 5 years? The person who writes 3,000 words a day burns out in 6 weeks. They don't write anything for the next 11 months. They try again next January. They burn out again. 5 years later, they have 3 abandoned drafts and a belief that they're not a real writer. The person who writes 200 words a day writes 73,000 words a year. That's a book every year. 5 years later, they have 5 completed books and an identity as a professional writer. Same goal. Completely different approach. Completely different outcome. Stamina wins. Let's apply this to business. The speed approach says work 80 hours a week to build your startup. Sacrifice everything. Sleep 4 hours a night. Hustle harder than everyone else. The stamina approach says work 8 hours a day on your business, 5 days a week. Protect your sleep. Protect your relationships. Protect your health. Build sustainably. Which approach leads to a thriving business in 10 years? The person working 80 hours a week makes it 2 years before their marriage falls apart, their health collapses, or their mental health breaks. They shut down the business. They never try again. The person working 40 hours a week is still building 10 years later. They've survived multiple recessions, multiple pivots, multiple setbacks. Their business is mature, profitable, and resilient. Stamina wins. Now here's the insight most people miss. Building stamina doesn't mean working less. It means working sustainably. It means finding the pace you can maintain indefinitely and then maintaining it. Some people can sustain 6 hours a day. Some can sustain 10. The number doesn't matter. What matters is that the number is honest and sustainable. Ask yourself right now, what pace can you actually maintain for 5 years? Not what pace sounds impressive, not what pace you can force yourself to do for a month. What pace is so comfortable that you could do it even on your worst days? That's your sustainable pace. That's your stamina baseline. And that baseline is going to carry you further than any burst of intensity ever could. Here's how you build stamina practically. You start with embarrassingly small micro habits. So small that you can't fail. So small that resistance is impossible. Let's say you want to get fit. Don't commit to an hour at the gym every day. Commit to one push-up every day, just one. That's it. You can do one push-up on your busiest day. You can do one push-up when you're sick. You can do one push-up when you're traveling. One push-up is easy, but one push-up done every day for a year creates an identity. You become someone who works out every day, and someone who works out every day eventually does more than one push-up. The habit expands naturally because the identity is established. Let's say you want to build a business. Don't commit to launching a product in 30 days. Commit to writing one sales email every day. Just one. That's it. You can write one email before work. You can write one email on weekends. You can write one email when you're tired. One email is easy. But one email done every day for a year means 365 emails sent. That's 365 chances for a yes. That's 365 proof points that you're serious. The habit compounds. Here's the pattern. You commit to the smallest possible version of the habit. You protect the streak. You never break the chain. And you trust that the action is accumulating value even when you can't see it. This is stamina. Not impressive on any single day. Unstoppable over time. But building stamina requires one more crucial element. You have to protect your energy. You have to become ruthless about what drains you and what fuels you. Because stamina isn't just about doing more. It's about conserving energy so you can sustain effort. Think about your phone battery. If you run every app at once with full brightness, your battery dies in 2 hours. If you close unnecessary apps, dim the screen, and use low power mode, your battery lasts all day. Same battery, different strategy. Same principle applies to you. You have a finite amount of energy. If you waste it on things that don't matter, you won't have energy for things that do. If you protect it strategically, you can sustain effort indefinitely. Energy drains come in 3 categories: people who drain you, activities that drain you, and thoughts that drain you. Most people tolerate all 3 without questioning them. You're going to eliminate them. People who drain you are those who take more than they give, who complain without solving, who demand without reciprocating, who create drama without creating value. You know who they are. The friend who only calls when they need something, the colleague who gossips and spreads negativity, the family member who criticizes everything you do. These people are battery drains, and you don't owe them unlimited access to your energy. Set boundaries, limit contact, choose people who energize you instead. Activities that drain you are tasks that don't align with your goals or values. Scrolling social media for an hour, watching television you don't even enjoy, attending meetings that accomplish nothing, saying yes to commitments you resent. Every hour spent on a draining activity is an hour you can't spend on a fueling activity. Audit your days. Identify the drains. Eliminate or minimize them. Replace them with activities that energize you. Thoughts that drain you are the mental loops that consume your attention without producing value. Worrying about things you can't control, replaying past mistakes, imagining worst-case scenarios, comparing yourself to others. These thoughts are energy vampires. They drain your battery without moving you forward. When you notice a draining thought, interrupt it. Replace it with a focusing question. Not, "Why does this always happen to me?" but, "What's one action I can take right now?" Redirect your mental energy toward action instead of rumination. Here's what happens when you protect your energy. You have more capacity for the micro habits that compound. You have more resilience when you hit the quitting threshold. You have more stamina for the long game. You become the person who's still showing up when everyone else has collapsed from exhaustion. Let me share a visualization with you. Close your eyes if you're in a safe place to do so. Picture yourself 1 year from now. You've shown up every single day for 365 days. You've done your micro habit consistently. No skipped days, no broken chains, no excuses. Now look at what you've built. Look at how much has accumulated. Look at who you've become. You're not just someone who did a thing for a year. You're someone who is the kind of person who shows up no matter what. That identity is permanent. That identity is powerful. That identity changes everything. Open your eyes. That future self is available to you, but only if you build stamina starting today. Take a moment and think about this. What's one micro habit you can commit to right now that you could sustain for a year? Something so small, it's almost embarrassing. That's the one. That's your stamina builder. Start today. Protect the streak. Trust the compound effect. This brings us to the war of attrition mindset. This is where everything changes. This is where you stop competing directly and start winning by default. A war of attrition is a prolonged battle where victory goes to whoever has the most resources and staying power. In traditional warfare, it means wearing down the enemy until they can't continue. In business and life, it means outlasting your competition until they eliminate themselves. You're not trying to be better than them. You're waiting for them to quit. And they will quit. Everyone does. The war of attrition mindset is simple. Every day you show up, your competition shrinks. Every day they skip, they get weaker. Every day you stay consistent, they get closer to quitting. You don't have to beat them. You just have to outlast them. And outlasting is easier than outperforming. Here's what most people don't understand about competition. The person who looks like they're winning in month 1 is rarely the person winning in month 12. The flashy launch, the viral moment, the big press coverage, none of it predicts who's still standing a year later. In fact, early success often leads to early failure because it creates unsustainable expectations and pace. Think about every industry you know. How many businesses opened in your city 5 years ago? How many are still open today? How many restaurants, gyms, boutiques, cafes launched with excitement and closed within 18 months? Most of them. They didn't fail because they weren't good enough. They failed because they couldn't outlast the valley of disappointment. They failed because they ran out of stamina before they ran out of competition. Now think about the businesses that are still there after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. They're not necessarily the best. They're not necessarily the most innovative. But they're still open. They've survived recessions, trends, competition, and their own mistakes. They've outlasted thousands of competitors who've come and gone. They won the war of attrition. This is true in every domain. The author who's written 20 books isn't necessarily more talented than the person who wrote one great book and then quit. But they're more successful because they're still writing. The investor who's been in the market for 30 years isn't necessarily smarter than the person who made a killing in one bull market and then lost everything in the crash. But they're wealthier because they're still investing. The athlete who played for 15 seasons isn't necessarily more gifted than the rookie sensation who flamed out in year 3. But they have more championship rings because they stayed healthy, stayed disciplined, and stayed in the game. The war of attrition mindset changes how you interpret setbacks. When something goes wrong, most people think, "This means I should quit." The war of attrition mindset thinks, "This is thinning out my competition." When you lose a client, you think, "Someone else just quit this niche, and I'm still here." When your video gets no views, you think, "Most creators will quit after this, and I won't." When your business has a bad month, you think, "Weak competitors are closing right now, and I'm still open." Every setback is proof that the war is working in your favor, because you're still in it, and they're not. Let me tell you about a woman named Priya, who started a podcast about sustainable fashion. In her first 6 months, she released 24 episodes. She interviewed experts, researched thoroughly, and produced high-quality content. Her average episode got 37 downloads. 37. After 6 months of work, she had fewer than 1,000 total downloads. It would have been completely rational for her to quit. But Priya understood the war of attrition. She knew that most podcasts die before episode 20. She knew that 90% of podcasts never reach 50 episodes. She knew that if she could just keep going, she'd outlast almost everyone who started at the same time she did. So she kept recording. Episode 25. Episode 30. Episode 40. Her downloads slowly climbed. 50 per episode, then 70, then 100. By episode 100, she was getting 500 downloads per episode. By episode 150, she was getting 3,000. Her podcast became a top resource in the sustainable fashion space. Brands started sponsoring her. She launched a consulting business. She quit her day job. All because she understood that her competition was quitting every month, and she just needed to be the one still recording. Here's the math that makes this work. Let's say 100 people start podcasting in the same niche on the same day. By month 3, 70 have quit. By month 6, 85 have quit. By month 12, 93 have quit. By month 24, 97 have quit. If you're one of the 3 still going, you're now in the top 3%. Not because you got better, because everyone else quit. This is the war of attrition. The competition eliminates itself. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. You don't have to be the best. You just have to be the last. Now, here's how you weaponize this mindset. Every time you face a setback, you say out loud, "Someone just quit because of this. I'm still here." Every time you have a bad day, you say, "Most people will use this as an excuse to stop. I won't." Every time you don't see results, you say, "This is the valley that eliminates 90%. I'm in the 10% that continues." This isn't toxic positivity. This is strategic framing. You're training your brain to interpret difficulty as competitive advantage instead of personal failure. You're rewiring your response to adversity. Instead of adversity making you weaker, it makes you relatively stronger because everyone else is weakening faster. Think about a recession. During a recession, businesses close. People lose jobs. Opportunities disappear. That's terrible for individuals caught in it. But for the business that survives the recession, they emerge into a market with less competition. They win customers from closed competitors. They hire talent from failed companies. They grow faster in the recovery because they outlasted the downturn. The recession was a war of attrition, and they won by staying alive. The same principle applies to your personal goals. When you're trying to build a skill, most people quit when progress slows. That's your opportunity. When you're building a business, most founders quit when funding gets hard. That's your opening. When you're creating content, most creators quit when growth plateaus. That's your advantage. Every wave of quitters makes your position stronger. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop asking, "Am I good enough to win?" Start asking, "Am I stubborn enough to outlast?" The first question makes you doubt yourself. The second question makes you commit to staying power. Good enough is subjective. Stubborn enough is a choice. Can you show up tomorrow? Yes. Can you show up the day after that? Yes. Can you show up for a month? Probably. Can you show up for 6 months? Maybe. Can you show up for a year? That's harder. Can you show up for 5 years? Now we're talking about real staying power. Can you show up for 10 years? If you can answer yes to that, you're virtually guaranteed to win. Because nobody else is answering yes to that question. They're all looking for the 6-month shortcut. The war of attrition mindset isn't about being better than anyone. It's about being there longer than everyone. It's about making peace with the slow pace. It's about trusting that time is on your side. It's about knowing that every day you stay in the game, the odds shift more in your favor. Reflect on this question. Who are you competing against right now? Who started the same journey at the same time? How many of them are still active? How many have slowed down? How many have quit entirely? The answer will surprise you. You're probably already winning the war of attrition. You just haven't realized it yet. Now we need to talk about what keeps you in the war when everyone else is retreating. We need to talk about emotional armor, about staying calm when others panic. Emotional armor is your capacity to remain stable when circumstances are chaotic. It's the ability to think clearly when others are reacting emotionally. It's staying calm when others panic. It's responding when others react. This is what separates the person who outlasts from the person who quits at the first sign of trouble. Think about soldiers in combat. The soldier who panics gets killed. The soldier who freezes gets killed. The soldier who stays calm, assesses the situation, and takes measured action survives. You're not in physical combat, but you're in psychological combat. The battle is between your commitment and your circumstances. Your circumstances will attack your commitment every single day. Emotional armor protects you. Most people quit because they can't handle the emotional experience of continuing. It's not that the task is impossible, it's that the feelings are unbearable. The fear, the doubt, the frustration, the disappointment, the embarrassment. These emotions build up until quitting feels like relief. If you can manage the emotions, you can outlast anything. If you can't, you'll quit even when success is 1 day away. Let me take you inside a real moment. There's a man named Jason who was building a mobile app. He'd been working on it for 8 months. He'd spent $20,000 of his savings on development. He'd sacrificed weekends, evenings, and sleep. The app was finally ready to launch. He submitted it to the App Store, and it got rejected. Technical violation. He'd have to fix the code and resubmit. Another month of work, another month of delay, another month of watching his savings shrink. Jason sat at his computer and felt the panic rising. He'd run out of money soon. He'd wasted months. The app might get rejected again. Maybe this whole thing was a mistake. Maybe he should just get a job. Maybe he should quit. The emotions were overwhelming. The panic was physical. His chest was tight. His thoughts were racing. He couldn't think straight. In that moment, quitting felt like the only way to stop the pain. But Jason had built emotional armor. He'd trained himself for this exact moment. He stood up. He walked outside. He took 10 deep breaths. He acknowledged the panic without acting on it. He said out loud, "I'm feeling panic. This is normal. This doesn't mean I should quit. This means I'm close." He went back inside. He opened his project plan. He scheduled the fixes. He set a new submission date. The panic was still there, but it didn't control him. He outlasted the emotional attack. 3 weeks later, the app was approved. 6 months later, it had 50,000 users. 1 year later, Jason sold the app for $200,000. He won because he had emotional armor. The panic tried to make him quit. The armor protected him. Here's how you build emotional armor. First, you have to understand that emotions are information, not instructions. Fear doesn't mean stop. It means pay attention. Doubt doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're uncertain. Frustration doesn't mean quit. It means something needs to change. Disappointment doesn't mean failure. It means expectations weren't met. When you feel a strong negative emotion, your first job is to name it. Not to fix it, not to eliminate it, just to name it. I'm feeling fear right now. I'm feeling doubt. I'm feeling frustration. Naming the emotion creates distance between you and the emotion. You're not the fear. You're the person observing the fear. That distance gives you choice. That distance gives you power. Your second job is to question the story the emotion is telling you. Emotions come with narratives. Fear says, "This is dangerous. You should retreat." Doubt says, "You're not good enough. You should quit." Frustration says, "This isn't working. You should try something else." These narratives feel true, but they're not facts. They're interpretations. And you can choose different interpretations. When fear says, "This is dangerous," you can respond, "This is uncertain." Uncertain is not the same as dangerous. When doubt says, "You're not good enough," you can respond, "I'm not good enough yet." Yet is the key word. When frustration says, "This isn't working," you can respond, "This isn't working the way I expected. I can adjust." Your third job is to take action despite the emotion. Emotions want you to wait until you feel better, but you'll never feel better until you act. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence reduces the power of negative emotions. The cycle works in reverse, too. Inaction increases anxiety. Anxiety increases doubt. Doubt increases inaction. You have to break the cycle by acting when you don't feel like it. This is emotional armor in practice. Feel the emotion, name it, question its story. Act anyway, repeat forever. Over time, the emotions lose their power to control you. They become weather. Sometimes it rains. You get wet. You keep walking. Sometimes you feel fear. You feel it fully. You keep moving. The rain doesn't make you quit the journey. The fear doesn't either. Let me give you a specific technique that works immediately. It's called the 90-second rule. Neuroscientist Jill Bolte Taylor discovered that the physiological response of an emotion lasts exactly 90 seconds in your body. 90 seconds. After that, you're not feeling the emotion anymore. You're thinking about the emotion, which regenerates it. The actual chemical cascade in your body is over in 90 seconds. Here's how you use this. When you feel panic, fear, or overwhelm, set a timer for 90 seconds. For those 90 seconds, do nothing but observe the feeling. Don't fight it. Don't act on it. Just feel it. Notice where it shows up in your body. Notice how it changes. Breathe steadily. When the 90 seconds are up, the worst of it is over. You've outlasted the peak. Now you can think clearly and decide what to do. This technique works because it prevents you from making decisions at the peak of emotional intensity. Most people quit when the emotion is at maximum strength. They can't outlast 90 seconds of discomfort. But if you can, you make decisions from a calm state instead of a panicked state. And decisions made from calm almost never include quitting. Here's another tool, the pre-commitment decision. Before you feel the emotion, you decide how you'll respond when you feel it. You write it down. You make it a rule. When I feel like quitting, I will wait 48 hours before making any decisions. When I feel overwhelmed, I will go for a 10-minute walk before doing anything else. When I doubt myself, I will read my list of past successes. Pre-commitment removes the decision from the emotional moment. You're not deciding whether to quit when you're panicking. You're following a rule you made when you were calm. The rule protects you from yourself. Think about this. What emotion most frequently makes you want to quit? Is it fear, doubt, frustration, disappointment, exhaustion? Identify it. Name it. Now decide right now, before you feel it next time, exactly what you'll do when it shows up. Write it down. Make it your emotional armor protocol. When the emotion attacks, you have a defense system ready. This is how you stay calm when others panic. Others panic because they're controlled by their emotions. You stay calm because you've separated your identity from your emotional state. You can feel fear and still act courageously. You can feel doubt and still move forward. You can feel frustration and still persist. The emotions don't control you. You experience them, you honor them, and you act according to your commitment, not your feelings. The person with emotional armor outlasts everyone, not because they feel less, because they let feelings pass through them instead of stopping them. Now let's talk about the fuel system that makes all of this possible. Let's talk about energy management, the Outlasters fuel system. Energy management is the most overlooked aspect of sustained performance. Everyone focuses on time management, how to be more productive, how to get more done in less time. But time is fixed. You have 24 hours. Everyone does. Energy is variable. You can have high energy or low energy in those 24 hours. The person who manages energy outlasts the person who only manages time. Think about your phone again. You can have 12 hours of remaining battery time, but if your battery is at 10%, you're constantly worried about it dying. You use your phone differently. You ration your usage. You're stressed. Contrast that with having 6 hours of battery time, but being at 90%. You use your phone freely. You're relaxed. Time remaining is less important than charge level. Same principle applies to you. You might have 10 hours available to work, but if your energy is at 10%, those hours are unproductive and miserable. You might have only 4 hours available, but if your energy is at 90%, those hours are focused and fulfilling. Outlasters don't optimize for time. They optimize for energy. Energy comes from 4 sources: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Each source needs maintenance. Most people drain all 4 without recharging any. Then they wonder why they burn out. You're going to be different. You're going to protect and replenish all 4 energy sources. This is how you sustain effort for years, not weeks. Physical energy is the foundation. It comes from sleep, nutrition, movement, and recovery. You cannot outlast anyone if your body is depleted. Period. You might push through with willpower for days or weeks, but you will collapse. The body has non-negotiable needs. Sleep is the most important. If you're sleeping less than 7 hours a night, you're operating at a deficit. You might feel fine. Your performance says otherwise. Sleep deprivation accumulates. It's called sleep debt, and it impairs your judgment, emotional regulation, and decision-making. Every night of poor sleep makes quitting more likely. Nutrition is second. Your brain runs on glucose. Your body runs on nutrients. If you're eating processed foods, skipping meals, or relying on caffeine and sugar for energy, you're creating artificial spikes and crashes. Outlasters eat consistently. They prioritize protein and whole foods. They hydrate. This isn't about perfection. It's about not sabotaging yourself. Movement is third. Your body was designed to move. Sitting for 10 hours a day isn't sustainable. You don't need to run marathons. You need to walk, to stretch, to move blood and oxygen through your system. 20 minutes of movement a day is enough to maintain your physical energy baseline. Recovery is fourth. You need rest days. You need downtime. You need periods where you do nothing productive. This isn't laziness. This is strategic energy management. The person who works 7 days a week burns out. The person who works 6 days and rests 1 day outlasts them. Emotional energy is your capacity to engage with others and handle stress. It drains when you're around negative people, when you're managing conflict, when you're suppressing emotions. It recharges when you're around positive people, when you express emotions healthily, when you feel connected. If you're emotionally drained, you can't sustain effort. You'll quit to escape the emotional discomfort. Protect your emotional energy by setting boundaries with draining people. Seek out energizing relationships. Process your emotions instead of suppressing them. Talk to friends. Journal. Cry if you need to. Emotional energy needs release valves. Without them, pressure builds until you explode or collapse. Mental energy is your capacity for focus and decision-making. It drains with every decision you make, every problem you solve, every choice you consider. It's why you can think clearly in the morning and feel mentally foggy by evening. Decision fatigue is real. By evening, you're more likely to quit something you committed to in the morning because your mental energy is depleted. Recharge mental energy by eliminating unnecessary decisions. Automate routines. Wear the same outfit every day if it removes a decision. Eat the same breakfast. Follow the same morning routine. Reduce decision load so you have mental energy for what matters. Also, take breaks. Your brain needs rest. Work for 90 minutes, break for 10. Work for another 90, break again. Sustained focus without breaks depletes mental energy faster than anything. Spiritual energy is your sense of meaning and purpose. It's what makes effort feel worthwhile. It drains when you feel disconnected from purpose, when your actions don't align with your values, when you're doing things that don't matter to you. It recharges when you reconnect with why you're doing what you're doing, when you engage in meaningful activities, when you contribute to something larger than yourself. This is the energy source most people ignore, and it's the most important for outlasting. You can manage physical, emotional, and mental energy perfectly, but if you don't have spiritual energy, you'll still quit. Because without meaning, why continue? Protect spiritual energy by regularly reconnecting with your purpose. Why does this goal matter? Who does it serve? What will it create? When you remember the why, the how becomes easier. Here's your energy management system. Start each week by auditing all 4 energy sources. Rate each one on a scale of 1 to 10. Which is lowest? That's your priority for the week. If physical energy is low, focus on sleep and nutrition. If emotional energy is low, set boundaries and seek connection. If mental energy is low, eliminate decisions and take more breaks. If spiritual energy is low, reconnect with your purpose. Energy management isn't about adding more to your life. It's about protecting what you have and strategically recharging. The outlaster isn't the person who does the most. The outlaster is the person who sustains a healthy pace indefinitely. That requires treating your energy as your most valuable resource. Ask yourself this right now. Which energy source are you most neglecting? What's one small change you could make this week to recharge it? Don't wait until you're completely depleted. Maintain your energy proactively. That's how you outlast everyone who's running on empty. Now, we need to address a critical skill that determines whether you outlast or quit prematurely. The pivot versus persist decision matrix. Knowing when to adapt your strategy and when to double down. This is where most people mess up. They either persist when they should pivot, or they pivot when they should persist. They confuse strategy with commitment. They think changing strategy means they've failed. Or they think persisting despite terrible results means they're disciplined. Both mistakes cost years of life. Here's the distinction. Your commitment is to the outcome. Your strategy is the path to the outcome. Commitment should be stubborn. Strategy should be flexible. When results aren't coming, you need to diagnose whether the problem is your commitment or your strategy. If it's commitment, you need to deepen it. If it's strategy, you need to change it. Let me give you the decision matrix. There are 4 questions. Your answers determine whether you pivot or persist. Question 1. Is the goal still meaningful to you? If you've lost connection to why the goal matters, the problem is commitment. You need to either reconnect with the meaning or admit you're pursuing something you don't actually want. If the goal is still deeply meaningful, proceed to question 2. Question 2. Are you taking consistent action? If you're not showing up regularly, the problem is discipline, not strategy. No strategy works without consistent execution. If you're showing up every day and still not getting results, proceed to question 3. Question 3. Has enough time passed? Most strategies need 6 to 12 months to show results. If you've only been at it for 6 weeks, you haven't given it enough time. Persist. If you've been at it for over a year with 0 progress, proceed to question 4. Question 4. Are others succeeding with this strategy? If people similar to you are getting results doing what you're doing, the strategy works. You just need to persist longer or execute better. If nobody is succeeding with this approach, the strategy itself is flawed. Time to pivot. Let's walk through examples. Imagine you're building a YouTube channel. You've been posting videos for 4 months. You're getting 30 views per video. You're thinking about quitting. Let's use the matrix. Question 1. Is the goal still meaningful? Yes, you still want to build an audience and create content. Proceed. Question 2. Are you taking consistent action? Yes, you're posting twice a week. Proceed. Question 3. Has enough time passed? No. 4 months is too early. YouTube channels typically need 12 to 18 months to gain traction. Answer. Persist. Keep posting. Same scenario, different details. You've been posting for 2 years. Still getting 30 views per video. Question 1. Still meaningful? Yes. Question 2. Consistent action? Yes. Question 3. Enough time? Yes. 2 years is sufficient. Question 4. Are others succeeding with this approach? Check successful channels in your niche. If they're all posting the same type of content you are and growing, the strategy works. You need better execution. If they're posting different content, different formats, different topics, your strategy is wrong. Answer, pivot, change your content approach. Here's another example. You're in a relationship that's struggling. You're thinking about leaving. Matrix time. Question 1. Is the relationship still meaningful? If you've checked out emotionally, the answer is no. The problem is commitment. Either recommit or leave. If the relationship still matters deeply, proceed. Question 2. Are you taking consistent action to improve it? If you're not communicating, not making effort, not working on yourself, the problem is discipline. No relationship works without consistent investment. If you're doing everything you can and it's still deteriorating, proceed. Question 3. Has enough time passed? Relationships need months to shift patterns. If you just started trying last week, persist. If you've been working on it actively for a year with no improvement, proceed. Question 4. Are others succeeding with similar approaches? Talk to couples who've overcome similar issues. Did therapy work for them? Did better communication work? If yes, your strategy works, but needs more time or better execution. If nobody's approach is working for your specific issue, it might be time to accept the relationship has run its course. The matrix works for any domain. Business, creative projects, fitness goals, career paths, education. The 4 questions diagnose whether you need to persist or pivot. Here's the mistake most people make. They pivot too early. They change strategy every time they hit resistance. They're always at the beginning of a new approach, never far enough into any approach to see if it works. This is strategy hopping. It feels like productivity. It's actually quitting disguised as pivoting. The second mistake is persisting too long with a broken strategy. They confuse stubbornness with discipline. They double down on losing hands because they've already invested so much. This is the sunk cost fallacy. They think, I've already put in 2 years. I can't quit now. But 2 years of a broken strategy won't magically become a working strategy in year 3. Sometimes you need to cut your losses and try something new. Here's how you avoid both mistakes. Use the matrix objectively. Get outside perspective. Ask someone not emotionally invested in your situation to help you answer the 4 questions honestly. Often you know the right answer, but you're too close to see it. An outside view cuts through the emotional fog. Also, set review points in advance. When you start something new, decide up front when you'll evaluate it. I'll review this strategy at 6 months and 12 months. When the review point arrives, use the matrix. If the answer is persist, commit to the next review point. If the answer is pivot, change strategy and set new review points. Don't make these decisions in the middle of emotional moments. Make them at planned review points with clear criteria. Here's a real example. A woman named Lisa started a consulting business, helping small businesses with marketing. After 8 months, she had 3 clients and was barely breaking even. She was exhausted and discouraged. She was ready to quit and get a job. But first, she used the matrix. Question 1. Is the goal meaningful? Yes. She loved helping businesses grow. Proceed. Question 2. Consistent action? Yes. She was networking, posting on LinkedIn, reaching out to prospects weekly. Proceed. Question 3. Enough time? Borderline. 8 months is early for consulting, but she should be seeing more traction. Proceed. Question 4. Are others succeeding? She looked at successful consultants in her space. They were all niching down to specific industries. She was trying to help everyone. That was her problem, not her commitment, not her effort. Her strategy was too broad. Lisa pivoted. She specialized in helping dental practices with marketing. Same skills, narrower market. Within 4 months, she had 8 clients and was profitable. Within a year, she had 20 clients and was booked solid. She didn't quit. She pivoted her strategy while persisting in her commitment. That's the Outlast advantage applied correctly. Think about something you're struggling with right now. Something where you're not seeing results. Something where you're wondering if you should quit. Run it through the matrix. Answer the 4 questions honestly. What's the answer? Pivot or persist? And if it's pivot, what specifically needs to change? Strategy, approach, niche, method. Not everything. Just the variable that's not working. The person who outlasts isn't rigid. They're committed to the outcome but flexible about the path. They persist long enough to know if something works. They pivot smart enough to not waste years on broken strategies. They use the matrix instead of their emotions to make decisions. That's how you stay in the game without staying stuck. This brings us to a critical skill for outlasting: social proof immunity. Learning to ignore the crowd's exit. Social proof. Immunity means your decisions aren't controlled by what everyone else is doing. When everyone's quitting, you don't follow. When everyone's panicking, you stay calm. When everyone says it's not working, you keep working. You're immune to the herd mentality that causes mass exits. Humans are social creatures. We're wired to follow the crowd. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism. If everyone's running away from something, it's probably dangerous. If everyone's moving towards something, it's probably safe. This instinct kept our ancestors alive, but it destroys modern success. Here's why. The crowd is always wrong about long-term decisions. The crowd quits too early. The crowd follows trends instead of principles. The crowd looks for shortcuts. The crowd wants instant results. If you follow the crowd, you'll end up where the crowd ends up. And where does the crowd end up? Average, mediocre, unfulfilled, wondering why they never achieved what they were capable of. The outlaster develops immunity to social proof, not by ignoring all external input, but by filtering external input through their own judgment. They ask, is this person further along the path than I am? Have they outlasted what I'm facing? Or are they part of the crowd that quits? Most advice comes from people who quit. Think about that. Someone tries something for 6 months, doesn't see results, quits, and then tells everyone, it doesn't work. They present their quitting as wisdom. They rationalize their decision by convincing others to quit too. This is social proof contagion. One person quits and spreads the quitting virus to everyone around them. You need immunity. When someone tells you to quit, your first question should be, how long did you try before you quit? If they quit early, their advice is worthless. They didn't outlast the valley of disappointment. They don't know what's on the other side. They're part of the 97% who quit 3 feet from gold. Let me take you inside another real scenario. There's a group of 5 friends who all started businesses in the same year. They met monthly to share progress and support each other. In month 4, one friend quit. He wasn't seeing sales. He told the group, "This business thing is harder than I thought. I'm going back to my job." The group nodded supportively. In month 7, a second friend quit. She was exhausted from working evenings and weekends. She told the group, "I don't think it's worth sacrificing my personal life. I'm done." The remaining 3 felt the same exhaustion. They started wondering if they should quit too. In month 10, a third friend quit. His business had one bad month, and he panicked. He told the group, "The market is too competitive. There's no room for new players." The 2 remaining friends looked at each other. They were also facing competition. Maybe he was right. Maybe they should quit while they were ahead. In month 13, the 4th friend quit. He got a good job offer. He told the last remaining friend, "Look, we gave it a shot. It's not working. You should quit too and come work with me." The last friend, Marcus, was alone. 4 out of 5 had quit. The social proof said quit, but Marcus had social proof immunity. He asked himself, "Are they further along than I am, or did they quit before figuring it out?" The answer was obvious. They all quit. Their advice was based on quitting, not outlasting. Marcus stayed. He kept working. By month 18, his business was profitable. By month 24, he quit his day job. By year 3, he was making more than all 4 friends combined. He outlasted them. He ignored the crowd's exit. This is social proof immunity in action. The majority told him to quit. He filtered that input through his own judgment and rejected it. If he'd followed the crowd, he'd be an employee wondering what could have been. Instead, he's a successful business owner. Here's how you build social proof immunity. First, choose your inputs carefully. Only take advice from people who've succeeded where you want to succeed. If you're building a business, listen to people who've built successful businesses. Not people who tried and quit. Not people who've never tried at all. Success leaves clues, but so does failure. Make sure you're following success clues, not failure patterns. Second, expect that most people will quit. When 97% of people quit, seeing people quit is not evidence that you should quit. It's evidence that you're surrounded by the 97%. It's confirmation that outlasting will work. Every person who quits around you makes your position stronger. Don't let their exits shake your commitment. Let their exits motivate you. Third, find one person who's outlasted what you're facing. One person who's further ahead. One person who's stuck with it longer. Learn from them. When doubt creeps in because everyone around you is quitting, talk to the person who didn't quit. They'll remind you that the valley is survivable, that the crowd always quits, that outlasting works. Fourth, reduce exposure to quitters. This sounds harsh, but it's necessary. If you're surrounded by people who quit everything, their mentality will infect you. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If those 5 people are quitters, you'll become a quitter. Find outlasters. Spend time with people who finish what they start. Their mentality is contagious in the right direction. Fifth, track your own progress, independent of others. Don't measure your success by comparing yourself to peers. Measure it by comparing yourself to yourself last month, last year, 5 years ago. Are you further along your path? Then you're winning. It doesn't matter if someone else is ahead of you. It doesn't matter if people around you are quitting. The only metric that matters is, are you still moving forward? Here's what happens when you develop social proof immunity. You stop being shaken by other people's decisions. When someone quits, you think, that's their path, not mine. When someone succeeds quickly, you think, good for them, I'm on my own timeline. When everyone says something's too hard, you think, that's why the opportunity is still available. You become unshakable. Ask yourself this: whose opinion would make you quit? Whose criticism would make you doubt? Whose exit would make you want to follow? Identify those people. Now ask yourself, have they outlasted what you're facing? If not, why would you let their opinion control your commitment? Build immunity by questioning the source of every input. Social proof immunity doesn't mean ignoring all feedback. It means filtering feedback through the lens of, does this person have the results I want? If yes, listen carefully. If no, thank them for their concern and keep moving. The outlaster is often the lonely one, the one still working when everyone else has moved on, the one still believing when everyone else has given up. That loneliness is temporary. Eventually, you reach success. Then you're surrounded by people who want to know how you did it. You tell them, I ignored everyone who told me to quit. Now let's talk about what makes all of this effort worthwhile. Let's talk about the compound effect of showing up. How small daily actions create exponential results over time. The compound effect is simple. Small actions repeated consistently over long periods create massive results. 1% improvement per day seems meaningless on day 1. It's invisible on day 30. It's barely noticeable on day 90. But by day 365, you're 30. 7 times better than when you started. That's the math of compounding. Most people dramatically overestimate what they can accomplish in a month and dramatically underestimate what they can accomplish in a year. In a month, you can't build a business, write a book, get in great shape, or master a skill. You can make progress, but not transformation. In a year, you can do all of those things. If you show up daily, if you compound small actions, if you trust the process. The problem is, nobody sees the compounding happening. For most of the year, it looks like nothing is working. You're putting in effort. You're not seeing proportional results. This is the valley of disappointment we talked about earlier. It's also the compounding phase. Results are accumulating underground. They're invisible, but they're there. Think about bamboo. When you plant bamboo, you water it every day for 5 years. For 5 years, you see nothing. No shoots, no growth, just dirt. It would be completely rational to assume the bamboo is dead. But in year 5, the bamboo shoots up 90 feet in 6 weeks. 90 feet in 6 weeks after 5 years of invisible growth. What was happening those first 5 years? The bamboo was building a massive root system underground, strong enough to support rapid vertical growth. That's compounding. The results are invisible until they're exponential. Your daily actions are building roots. You can't see them, but they're growing. Every day you show up, the root system gets stronger. Eventually, growth becomes inevitable, rapid, exponential. But only if you water the bamboo every day for 5 years. If you quit in year 3 because you can't see results, you never get the 90-foot growth in year 5. Let's make this concrete with real numbers. Let's say you want to build an audience online. You start posting content daily. Day 1, you get 10 views. Day 30, you're averaging 15 views. Day 90, you're averaging 25 views. This is discouraging. You're working hard for tiny growth. Most people quit here. But you keep going. Day 180, you're averaging 50 views. Day 270, you're averaging 100 views. Something is shifting. Day 365, you're averaging 300 views. By day 500, you're averaging 1,000 views. By day 730, your posts regularly get 5,000 views. What happened? Compounding. Every post taught you something. Every post improved your skills slightly. Every post built your body of work. Every post increased your authority. Every post attracted a few more followers. Those followers shared your work. Their followers found you. The algorithm rewarded your consistency. None of this was visible in month 1. All of it became undeniable in year 2. This is why outlasting works, because outlasting gives compounding time to work, and compounding is the most powerful force in success. It's more powerful than talent, more powerful than luck, more powerful than connections, more powerful than resources. Time plus consistency equals compounding, and compounding equals exponential results. Here's what most people don't understand about exponential growth. It looks linear for a long time. Then it curves upward sharply. The curve is called the hockey stick. Long, flat handle, then sudden, sharp curve. The handle is the period where you're tempted to quit. The curve is the period where everyone asks, "How did you succeed so fast?" You didn't succeed fast. You succeeded slowly and then suddenly. The slow part took years. The sudden part took weeks. But the sudden part was only possible because of the slow part. This is the compound effect. Linear effort creates exponential results, but only if the effort continues long enough to reach the curve. Let me tell you about a man named Tom who started saving money. He was 30 years old. He decided to save $500 a month. Just $500. In year 1, he saved $6,000. Nice, but not life-changing. In year 5, he had saved $30,000. Good, but still not life-changing. He was tempted to spend it on a new car, but he kept saving. In year 10, something interesting happened. His savings plus investment returns had grown to $180,000. He hadn't increased his monthly savings. He just kept showing up with his $500. The compound interest started doing heavy lifting. By year 20, he had $450,000. By year 30, he had $1.2 million. All from $500 a month and 30 years of consistency. Tom outlasted his impulse to spend. He outlasted his doubt about whether it mattered. He outlasted 30 years of friends buying cars and taking expensive vacations. He showed up with his $500 every single month. And compounding rewarded him with wealth. Same principle applies to everything. Small workouts compound into fitness. Small creative efforts compound into skills. Small acts of kindness compound into relationships. Small business actions compound into customers. Small learning sessions compound into expertise. The action is small. The result is exponential. If you don't quit. Here's your compound tracker exercise. Choose one action you can do every day that will compound over time. Writing 200 words, walking 20 minutes, making one sales call, reading 10 pages, creating one piece of content. Whatever it is, make it small enough that you can't fail. Now track it visibly. Put a calendar on your wall. Every day you complete the action, mark an X. Your goal is to not break the chain. String together as many X's as possible. Watch the compound effect build. The visual tracker serves 2 purposes. First, it motivates you. Seeing a long chain of X's makes you want to keep the chain alive. Breaking the chain feels like losing progress. Second, it proves to you that compounding is happening. Even if you can't see external results yet, you can see the chain growing. The chain is evidence that you're building something significant. Think about this question. What could you accomplish if you did one small thing every single day for a year? For 5 years? For 10 years? The answer is almost anything. You could become an expert, build a business, write multiple books, get in the best shape of your life, learn a language, master an instrument, build wealth. The limitation is never ability. It's always consistency over time. The compound effect is your secret weapon, because most people don't believe in it. They want immediate returns. They're not willing to invest daily for years. That means the field is wide open for you. When you commit to compounding, you're playing a game almost nobody else is playing. And that means you win by default. Reflect on this. Where have you already experienced compounding in your life? Maybe it was a skill you practiced for years that eventually became effortless. Maybe it was a relationship you invested in daily that became your most meaningful connection. Maybe it was savings that grew into significant money. You've already proven you can compound. Now you're going to do it intentionally in every area that matters. Now we need to address the biggest threat to outlasting, the threat that comes not from external circumstances, but from internal collapse. We need to talk about relapse-proofing your commitment, installing psychological tripwires that catch you before you quit. Relapse is when you break your commitment after a period of maintaining it. You were consistent for 60 days, then you missed 3 days, and now you've stopped completely. You were building momentum, then something disrupted your routine, and now you're starting over. Relapse is the moment where you slide from active to inactive, from committed to considering quitting. Here's what makes relapse dangerous. It's gradual. You don't go from fully committed to completely quit in one moment. You slide. First you miss 1 day, then you rationalize it, then you miss another day. Then you start questioning the whole commitment. Then you're thinking about quitting. Then you quietly stop showing up. Then 3 months later, you're wondering what happened. Relapse happens in predictable patterns. Understanding the pattern lets you interrupt it before it completes. There are 3 stages: the trigger, the justification, and the drift. The trigger is the event that starts the slide. It could be a setback, a criticism, a bad day, a disruption in routine, a disappointing result, a competing demand. Something breaks your momentum. This is normal. Triggers happen to everyone. The problem isn't the trigger. The problem is what happens next. The justification is the story you tell yourself about why it's okay to stop. I'll take a break and start again Monday. I've been so consistent. 1 day off won't hurt. This week is too busy. I'll get back to it when things calm down. Maybe I was pushing too hard. I should ease up. These stories sound reasonable. They're actually the beginning of quitting. The drift is the period where you're not actively working, but not actively quitting either. You're in limbo. You're taking a break. You're figuring things out. You're waiting for the right time to restart. Drift is the most dangerous stage because it feels like thoughtful consideration. It's not. It's slow motion quitting. Most people relapse in the drift stage. They never make an active decision to quit. They just stop showing up. Then enough time passes that coming back feels awkward, so they don't. They've quit without admitting it. This is how 90% of New Year's resolutions die. Not with a bang, with a whimper, with a slow drift into inactivity. You're going to relapse-proof your commitment by installing tripwires at each stage. A tripwire is an if-then statement that automatically activates when a specific condition is met. When the trigger happens, the tripwire catches you before justification starts. When justification starts, the tripwire redirects you before drift begins. When drift begins, the tripwire forces you back into action before quitting happens. Here's how you build tripwires. First, identify your personal triggers. What makes you miss days? What disrupts your consistency? Is it travel, stress, criticism, busy periods, social commitments, bad results? Write down the top 3 triggers that have caused you to relapse in the past. Those are your vulnerabilities. Now you need tripwires for each one. Tripwire format. If trigger happens, then I will take specific action. The action needs to be small, immediate, and protective. Let's say your trigger is travel. Your tripwire is, if I'm traveling, then I will do a 5-minute version of my commitment instead of skipping completely. You don't do your full routine. You do a minimal version, just enough to not break the chain, just enough to stay in the identity of someone who shows up. Let's say your trigger is bad results. Your tripwire is, if I get discouraging results, then I will wait 48 hours before making any decisions about my commitment. You don't quit in the emotional moment. You give yourself 2 days to regulate. Then you reassess. Almost always, after 48 hours, the impulse to quit has passed. Let's say your trigger is criticism. Your tripwire is, if someone criticizes my work, then I will talk to one person who supports me before changing anything. You don't let one negative voice override your commitment. You balance it with a positive voice. Then you evaluate the criticism objectively. Install tripwires for your top 3 triggers. Write them down. Make them specific. Make them automatic. When the trigger happens, you don't think. You execute the tripwire. This removes decision-making from the emotional moment. The tripwire has already decided for you. Now let's address the justification stage. The stories you tell yourself about why it's okay to stop. These stories need counter-narratives. A counter-narrative is a prepared response to your most common justifications. When your brain says, "I'll start again Monday," you immediately respond with the counter-narrative. Here are common justifications and their counter-narratives. Justification. I'll take a break and restart when I have more time. Counter-narrative. I said that last time and didn't restart for 3 months. There's never more time. I'll do 5 minutes today. Justification. 1 day off won't hurt. Counter-narrative. 1 day off leads to 3 days off. 3 days off leads to quitting. I'll protect the streak. Justification. I'm too tired to do this today. Counter-narrative. I'm too tired to do the full version. I'm not too tired to do a minimal version. I'll do 5 minutes and then decide. Justification. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Counter-narrative. Everyone feels this way in the valley. This is exactly when I need to continue. Write down your 3 most common justifications. Write counter-narratives for each one. Memorize them. When the justification appears in your mind, immediately respond with the counter-narrative. This interrupts the pattern before drift begins. Finally, let's relapse-proof the drift stage. Drift happens when too many days pass without action. Your tripwire here is, if I've gone 3 days without taking action, I will do the minimal version today no matter what. 3 days is your limit. Miss 1 day, fine. Miss 2 days, concerning. Miss 3 days, emergency response activated. On day 4, you do something, anything. just to break the drift pattern. Here's a real example. A woman named Rachel committed to running every day. She ran for 47 days straight. Then she got sick. She missed 2 days. On day 3, she still felt sick, but she knew the drift pattern. She put on her running shoes, walked to the end of her driveway, jogged for 1 minute, and walked back. It was the smallest possible effort, but it counted. She didn't break the chain. By day 5, she was healthy enough to run a full mile. By day 10, she was back to her regular routine. She avoided relapse because she activated her tripwire on day 3. If Rachel had drifted for a week, coming back would have been much harder. The identity shift would have started. She would have gone from person who runs every day to person who used to run every day. That identity shift is the death of commitment. Rachel protected her identity by never letting 3 days pass without action. You need the same protection. Define your relapse threshold. How many consecutive days without action triggers your emergency response? 2 days? 3 days? Whatever your number, make it your tripwire. If I go X days without action, I will do the minimal version, no matter how I feel. This is your relapse prevention system. Here's the final piece. You need an accountability partner, someone who knows your commitment and has permission to call you out when they see relapse patterns. Give them specific instructions. If I haven't posted for 3 days, text me and ask if I've quit. If I cancel on you twice in a row, ask me if I'm in a drift phase. If I start making justifications, remind me of my counter-narratives. Accountability partners work because they externalize the monitoring. You might not notice you're drifting. They will. They're not emotionally attached to your justifications. They'll see through them. They'll activate your tripwires when you don't activate them yourself. Choose someone who cares about your success and won't enable your excuses. Relapse proofing is about acknowledging that you will face triggers. You will be tempted to justify stopping. You will experience drift. But with tripwires installed, these moments don't lead to quitting. They lead to minimal action. And minimal action is enough to stay in the game. And staying in the game is all that matters. Take a moment now. What trigger are you most vulnerable to? What justification do you tell yourself most often? When have you drifted in the past? Design tripwires for each vulnerability. Write them down. Share them with your accountability partner. Install them before you need them, because you will need them. And when you do, they'll be the difference between relapse and outlasting. This leads us to one of the most powerful concepts in the Outlast advantage, winning by default. What happens when competition eliminates itself and you're the last one standing? Winning by default means you claim victory not by defeating others, but by still being there when everyone else has left. You don't outperform, you outlast. The competition removes itself from the game, and you inherit the rewards simply by remaining. This is the end game of the Outlast strategy. You're not actively competing anymore. You're just showing up consistently while others drop out one by one. Each person who quits makes your position stronger. Each month that passes reduces the number of active competitors. Each year that goes by increases your relative experience and credibility. Eventually, you wake up and realize you're one of the only people still doing this. And that makes you valuable by default. Think about any mature industry. The companies that dominate aren't necessarily the best. They're the oldest that are still good. They've survived recessions, market shifts, technology changes, and internal crises. New competitors emerge with better products, better prices, better marketing. But the new competitors often flame out. They grow too fast, run out of cash, lose focus, burn out the founders. The mature company outlasts them. Then another competitor emerges. Then they flame out, again and again. The mature company wins by being the constant, by outlasting wave after wave of competition. This is exactly what will happen in your domain if you outlast. You'll see competitors emerge with more energy, more resources, more talent. You'll feel inferior, but you'll keep showing up. They'll burn bright for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. Then they'll fade. They'll quit. They'll move on. And you'll still be there. This pattern repeats until you're a veteran, until people see you as established, until you win by default because everyone else left. Let me show you what this looks like in the creator economy. Every year, thousands of people start podcasts. They launch with excitement, professional equipment, great guests, high production value. They're competing with you. Some of them are better than you. For a while, you feel like you're falling behind. But here's what happens. Month 6 arrives. Half of them have quit. Month 12, 80% have quit. Month 24, 95% have quit. You're still recording. By year 3, you're one of the few consistently active podcasts in your niche. New listeners discover you because you have 3 years of back catalog. You have 3 years of SEO. You have 3 years of relationships. You have 3 years of practice. You're not competing with thousands anymore. You're competing with dozens. And among those dozens, you're one of the most experienced. You win opportunities not because you're the best podcaster, but because you're the most reliable one. The one who's proven you won't quit. This is winning by default. You didn't beat the competition. You watched the competition beat itself. The same pattern plays out everywhere, in local businesses, in professional services, in art and music, in writing and content, in relationships and networking. The person who's still there after 5 years doesn't need to be the most talented. They're the most proven. And proven beats talented every time. Here's why this works. Decision makers are risk-averse. When someone needs to hire a consultant, book a speaker, feature a guest, recommend a service, they don't pick the newest person. They pick the person with the longest track record. Because longevity signals reliability. If you've been doing something for 5 years, you're probably competent. You're probably stable. You're probably not going to quit mid-project. That reliability is worth more than potential talent. You become the safe choice, the default choice, the obvious choice. Not because you sold yourself as the best, because you demonstrated you're the last one standing. Now, here's the strategic implication. You don't need to outmarket, outperform, or outcompete. You need to outlast. That's easier. That's more sustainable. That's more controllable. You can't control how talented you are relative to others. You can control whether you show up tomorrow. So control what you can control. Show up. Keep showing up. Let time do the work of eliminating competition. This also means you should expect to be overlooked early. You should expect to lose opportunities to flashier competitors. You should expect to watch others get attention you think you deserve. That's fine. That's temporary. They're sprinting. You're pacing. You'll pass their crashed bodies at mile 8. Don't compete on flash. Compete on endurance. Don't compete on who starts strongest. Compete on who's still going in year 5. The person who's still there in year 5 wins everything. The resources, the opportunities, the respect, the financial rewards. All of it flows to the person who outlasted. Let me tell you about a man named Carlos, who started a landscaping business in a competitive market. In his first year, there were 37 other landscaping companies in his area. Some had been around for decades. Some were new, with flashy trucks and big marketing budgets. Carlos had a used truck and business cards. He didn't try to compete on flash. He competed on showing up. He did good work. He showed up on time. He answered his phone. He followed up. That's it. Nothing spectacular, just reliable. Year 1, he barely survived. Year 2, 3 competitors went out of business. Year 3, 5 more closed. Year 5, 15. Total had quit. Some retired. Some burned out. Some ran out of money. Carlos was still there. By year 10, he was one of the longest-standing landscapers in the area. When people asked for referrals, his name came up consistently. Not because he was the best, because he was the most reliable. He'd outlasted. Carlos's business is now worth millions. He has 20 employees. He's booked months in advance. He wins by default because half his competition has eliminated itself. New competitors still emerge, but most quit within 2 years. Carlos just has to outlast them, which he knows how to do, because he's been doing it for 15 years. This is your future if you outlast. You'll become the veteran, the reliable option, the safe bet. You'll win opportunities without even trying because you've proven you're not going anywhere. This is the power of winning by default. Position yourself now for default victory later. How? By making a 10-year commitment, not just a goal, a commitment. You're not trying this for 6 months to see if it works. You're committing for 10 years. Period. When you make a 10-year commitment, the game changes. You stop competing on short-term metrics. You start playing for long-term position. You stop worrying about who's ahead of you today. You start thinking about who'll still be here in 5 years. And the answer is almost nobody, which means you win. Ask yourself this question. If you committed to showing up in your field for 10 years no matter what, where would you be at the end of those 10 years? The answer is probably one of the most established people in your space. Not the most talented, not the most successful, but definitely in the top tier by virtue of longevity alone. That's winning by default, and it's available to you if you outlast. Now we're approaching the end of our journey together. It's time to talk about what comes after outlasting everyone. The victory lap. The life that waits for you after you've mastered the outlast advantage. The victory lap is the period after you've won by outlasting. It's when the compounding pays off, when opportunities flow easily, when your reputation is established, when your income is stable or growing, when your work feels easier because you've mastered it, when people seek you out instead of you chasing them. This is what you've been building toward. Here's what the victory lap looks like. You're no longer proving yourself. You've proven yourself by showing up for years. You're no longer competing for attention. Your body of work speaks for itself. You're no longer fighting for opportunities. Opportunities come to you. You're no longer wondering if you'll make it. You've made it. You outlasted everyone who quit. And now you're reaping the rewards. The victory lap doesn't mean you stop working. It means the work becomes different. Easier in some ways. More enjoyable. More aligned with what you want instead of what you have to do. You've earned the right to be selective. You've earned the right to say no. You've earned the right to do things your way. Because you outlasted long enough to have options. Let me paint you a picture of what this looks like. Imagine you've been writing online for 5 years. You've posted consistently. You've built an audience. You've created hundreds of pieces of content. Now, in year 6, brands reach out to you for sponsorships. You don't pitch them, they pitch you. Publishers reach out asking if you've considered writing a book. You don't query them, they query you. Speaking opportunities arrive. Podcast invitations come in. Collaboration requests fill your inbox. You're not chasing anymore. You're choosing. This is the victory lap. It's the natural outcome of outlasting. All the effort you put in during the valley, during the years when nobody was watching, during the times you wanted to quit, all of that compounds into a position of strength. You're now established. And established people get opportunities that unproven people have to fight for. The victory lap also means you've developed deep expertise. You're not faking it anymore. You're not figuring it out as you go. You've done this enough times that it's second nature. The work that took you 10 hours in year 1 takes you 2 hours in year 5. The quality that required immense effort early now comes naturally. You've paid the price. You've put in the reps. You're genuinely skilled now. This expertise creates a moat. New competitors can't catch you easily. Yes, they might be more talented. Yes, they might work harder. But they don't have your 5 years of experience. They don't have your body of work. They don't have your reputation. They don't have your relationships. They're starting where you started. And you know how hard those early years are. You've already survived them. That survival is your advantage. The victory lap also brings financial rewards. In the early years, you probably weren't making much money. You might have been losing money. You might have been working for free to build your skills and portfolio. But if you outlasted, the economics eventually shift. The person with 5 years of experience commands higher rates than the person with 6 months. The business with 5 years of operations has systems, clients, and revenue that the new business doesn't. The outlaster is finally profitable, finally comfortable, finally able to breathe. Let me tell you about a woman named Sarah, who spent 4 years building her coaching practice. For 4 years, she barely made enough to cover her expenses. She worked evenings and weekends on top of a day job. She questioned whether it would ever work, but she outlasted. By year 5, she was fully booked. By year 6, she raised her rates and was still fully booked. By year 7, she had a waiting list. She didn't have to market anymore. Clients came through referrals. She'd built such a strong reputation that her business ran on word of mouth. She was in her victory lap, working with ideal clients, making great money, doing work she loved, all because she outlasted the hard years. This is waiting for you, but only if you outlast. The victory lap doesn't come at month 6. It doesn't come at year 1. It comes after you've survived long enough to compound your efforts, after you've proven you're not going anywhere, after you've become established. That takes time, but the time is going to pass anyway. You can spend the next 5 years quitting and restarting, or you can spend it building toward a victory lap. Which sounds better? Here's what you need to understand. The victory lap is earned, not given. Nobody hands you success because you want it. You earn it by showing up when it's hard, by continuing when you don't see results, by trusting the process when everyone else quits. The victory lap is your reward for outlasting. And it's sweet, not just because of the external rewards, but because you know you earned it. You outlasted your own doubt. You outlasted the competition. You outlasted the valley. You outlasted the quitting threshold. You outlasted everything that tried to stop you. And now, you're here, in the victory lap, enjoying the fruits of years of consistency. This is the life most people dream about, but never experience. Why? Because they quit before the victory lap arrives. They quit in year 2 when they should have continued for 5. They quit when it got hard instead of trusting it would get easier. They sprint and burn out instead of pacing and lasting. You're going to be different. You're going to outlast. You're going to reach the victory lap. And when you do, you'll look back and think, I'm so glad I didn't quit. You'll think this was worth every hard day. You'll think the person who almost quit in month 6 would be shocked to see where I am now. So, let me ask you this final reflective question. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Do you want to be starting over again because you quit? Or do you want to be in your victory lap because you outlasted? The choice is entirely yours. But the only way to get to the victory lap is to outlast. Everything else is a shortcut that leads nowhere. We've covered a lot together. Now it's time to bring it all home. Time to synthesize everything into your new identity. Time to become unbeatable. You are now the person who doesn't quit. Not because quitting isn't an option, because outlasting is your strategy. While others sprinted and collapsed, you learned to pace. While others looked for shortcuts, you committed to the long path. While others quit when it got hard, you understood that hard is exactly where you needed to be. You've learned that the person who wins isn't always the smartest, fastest, or most talented. The person who wins is the one who's still standing when everyone else has walked away. You've learned that endurance beats talent, speed, and luck combined. You've learned that most people quit right before breakthrough. You've learned that you're probably closer to winning than you think. You've learned to identify your quitting threshold, that moment where your brain generates perfectly logical reasons to quit. You've learned to expect it, prepare for it, and push through it. You've learned that the valley of disappointment is not a sign you're on the wrong path. It's a sign you're exactly where you should be, right where most people quit, which means if you continue, you'll outlast them. You've learned to build stamina over speed, to create micro habits that compound into unstoppable momentum. You've learned that impressive daily efforts lead to burnout. Sustainable daily efforts lead to legacy. You've learned that 1% improvement every day for a year makes you 37 times better. You've learned that compounding is the most powerful force in success, but only if you show up long enough for it to work. You've learned the war of attrition mindset, that every day you show up, your competition shrinks. Every setback that makes someone else quit makes your position stronger. You're not trying to beat everyone. You're waiting for everyone to beat themselves. And they will. Everyone does. Except you. Because you're the outlaster. You've learned to build emotional armor, to stay calm when others panic, to feel difficult emotions without letting them control your actions. You've learned that emotions are information, not instructions. Fear doesn't mean stop. Doubt doesn't mean you're wrong. Frustration doesn't mean quit. You've learned the 90-second rule. You've learned pre-commitment decisions. You've learned that the person with emotional armor outlasts everyone. You've learned energy management. That time is fixed, but energy is variable. You've learned to protect and replenish your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual energy. You've learned that outlasting requires sustainable pace, not maximum effort. You've learned that the person who burns steady outlasts the person who burns bright. You've learned the pivot versus persist decision matrix, the 4 questions that tell you whether to change strategy or double down. You've learned that commitment should be stubborn, but strategy should be flexible. You've learned that sometimes you need to outlast your own stubbornness by pivoting smart, but most often, you need to outlast the temptation to pivot too early. You've learned social proof immunity, to ignore the crowd's exit, to filter advice through the lens of, has this person outlasted what I'm facing? You've learned that most advice comes from people who quit. You've learned that the majority is usually wrong about long-term decisions. You've learned that being the lonely one still working is temporary. Eventually, you're the successful one everyone wants to learn from. You've learned the compound effect, that small actions repeated consistently over long periods create massive results. You've learned that results are invisible until they're exponential. You've learned that most people quit in the bamboo phase, 5 years of watering with nothing to show. You've learned to trust that the roots are growing even when you can't see them. You've learned to relapse-proof your commitment, to install tripwires that catch you before you quit. You've learned to identify your triggers, prepare counter-narratives for your justifications, and activate emergency responses when you enter drift. You've learned that relapse is predictable, which means it's preventable, which means you can outlast your own tendency to quit. You've learned about winning by default, that if you outlast long enough, competition eliminates itself. You don't have to be the best, you have to be the last. You've learned that longevity signals reliability, that established beats talented, that the person still there in year 5 wins everything. And you've learned about the victory lap, the life that waits for you after you've outlasted everyone, the period where opportunities flow, where work feels easier, where you're respected and established, where the compounding finally pays off in ways you can see and feel. You've learned that the victory lap is earned through years of showing up when nobody was watching. Now here's what happens next. You apply everything you've learned. You identify one commitment you're going to outlast, one area where you're going to be the person who doesn't quit, one domain where you're going to master the outlast advantage. It could be your business, your creative work, your health, your relationships, your skill development. Whatever it is, you're making a 10-year commitment starting now. You're going to show up every day, or almost every day. You're going to build micro habits that compound. You're going to expect the quitting threshold and push through it. You're going to manage your energy so you can sustain effort indefinitely. You're going to build emotional armor so circumstances don't control you. You're going to ignore the crowd when they quit. You're going to trust the compound effect. You're going to install tripwires that prevent relapse. You're going to outlast everyone. Your secret is simple. You're still here. While others sprinted and collapsed, you paced yourself. While others looked for shortcuts, you walked the long path. While others quit when results weren't immediate, you trusted the process. You've outlasted the talented who burned out. You've outlasted the lucky who lost discipline. You've outlasted the fast starters who couldn't finish. The battlefield is littered with people who quit too soon. People who were 3 feet from gold and gave up. People who had 99% of the required effort and stopped at 98. People who would have won if they'd just lasted one more month, one more year, one more attempt. But you're still standing, and that makes you unbeatable. Not because you can't be beaten, because you won't quit long enough to be beaten. Not because you're the best, because you're the last. Not because you're special, because you're stubborn in the most strategic way possible. This isn't about being the best, it's about being the last. This isn't about outperforming, it's about outlasting. This isn't about talent or luck or connections. It's about showing up when everyone else has gone home. It's about being there tomorrow, and the next day, and the next year, and the next decade. Welcome to your new identity. You're the outlaster. You're the person competition can't wait out. You're the person setbacks can't stop. You're the person who's still working when everyone else is making excuses. You're the person who understands that time is your ally, not your enemy. You're the person who trusts compounding. You're the person who's made peace with the long game. Your new strategy is simple endurance, not impressive, not flashy, not Instagram-worthy. Just showing up, day after day, year after year, letting time do what time does, letting compounding work its magic, letting competition eliminate itself, letting consistency speak louder than intensity. Your new reality is inevitable victory, because if you don't quit, you can't lose. Because outlasting is binary. You're either still in the game or you're not. As long as you're in, you're winning. As long as you're showing up, you're compounding. As long as you're here, you're outlasting. 5 years from now, you're going to look back at this moment. You're going to remember the decision you made to outlast, to commit, to show up no matter what, and you're going to be grateful because you'll be in your victory lap, living the life most people only dream about, doing work you love, making the money you need, respected in your field, established, proven, successful, all because you outlasted. So here's my final question for you. Are you ready to become unbeatable? Are you ready to master the outlast, outwin strategy? Are you ready to commit for the long term? Are you ready to be the person who's still there when everyone else has left? If your answer is yes, then start today. Choose your commitment. Install your tripwires. Build your micro habits. Expect the quitting threshold. Manage your energy. Build your emotional armor. Ignore the crowd. Trust compounding. And most importantly, show up tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that, because you've mastered the outlast advantage. You're unbeatable. Not because you can't be beaten, because you won't quit long enough to be beaten. You're the last person standing, and that means you win everything. Welcome to Unbeatable.